There are many different definitions, I would say, or ways that people view the concept of ego. But in keeping with personality theory, let's just work off of the concept or the idea that ego is our first four functions. Our first four functions sort of operate as our ego, or in other words, they create for us a persona, an identity that we largely go through life trying to keep up. But it's not even within those four functions. We definitely are more heavily weighted to being defined and identified with two of those functions. And then, of course, out of those two, one of them rules the roost, that being our first function. Now, the result of this is that we often perceive what's going on around us and the interactions that we have with other people, but then our minds tell us a story about what we've perceived, and it is usually based on the cognitive functions that we have in our primary function stack, especially the two that we're most addicted to, especially that very first one. So what happens then is we go through life having experiences, but then our mind makes up a story about those experiences. And when we're unconscious of that fact, we are prone to believe that story. And that story is frequently not true at all. We take in the world, and then our mind lies to us about what it all means, or what is going on, or how we should interpret what we have taken in. I'm going to give you some examples. I know a lady who is an EJ, and for her, with having FE as her primary function, she is very addicted to the idea that everybody sort of needs to feel good together. Everybody needs to sort of be on the plane of fair, where everyone's fair, everyone should be equal, and everyone should work together with their feeling function, or everyone should work together to provide a good vibe, a good feeling, a good interaction with one another. Now, because she's addicted to this idea that everybody needs to put in effort to make everyone else feel good, she regularly has interactions that she comes away from saying, well, that person was really mean. That person was very rude. That person wasn't nice at all. That person talked hatefully to me, so on and so forth. I hear this person saying these types of sentences all the time after interactions with other people. And when I hear someone repeating constantly something of that nature, I begin to pick up on the fact that they're addicted to the need for everyone to play nice, let's say. And so what I then perceive is the people that she's having these interactions with are actually not playing mean quite often. They're not being hateful. They're not being rude. They're not being difficult. They're not being cantankerous. It's just that because she's so addicted to everyone being fair and even and everyone playing nice, that she goes through her life expecting to encounter the exact opposite. She goes through her life expecting people to be difficult and to be unpleasant with one another and so on and so forth. And therefore, when she encounters that, let me back up. She doesn't have to encounter it. Therefore, when she has encounters that are not exactly on the let's make everybody feel good level that she would try to do, she interprets everyone as being difficult, rude, whatever. And then, of course, that puts her in a bad mood. She will have an interaction with someone and say, well, that person was not very nice, and now she's in a bad mood. Her addiction to her top function in her ego, her addiction to her ego in general, causes her to lose happiness because her mind tells her a lie about the interaction she just had with a person, and then she becomes unhappy because of that. I know another gentleman who is I hear him regularly say, that person was disrespectful to me. That person was disrespectful to me. I'm not entirely sure of his type. I haven't figured that out yet. He's really difficult to peg. But what I do know is that he is clearly addicted to the need for respect. And so all of these people who are, quote, not being respectful to him are actually probably not being disrespectful. It's just that his addiction to respect is so strong that he then goes through life expecting to be disrespected because he has made up in his mind the types of communication that people should use with him, the way that they should talk to him. And of course, they don't know that they're under this obligation. They don't know that they're supposed to talk to him in this very specific way that he has delineated in his mind. And so when they don't talk to him in that way, they're disrespectful. Of course, when they're disrespectful, then that makes him angry, and now he's in a bad mood. Therefore, his addiction to his ego need for respect causes him to see disrespect where it doesn't exist. And then that causes him to become angry, mad, have a bad day, so on and so forth. It's his ego that's causing him to have a bad day. Nothing has really happened that should cause him to have a bad day. It's all made up in his mind, and he believes the lies that his mind is telling him. Now, lest you think that I'm exempt from this, or that I think I'm exempt from this, I'm absolutely not. For me, my ego with my FI at the top is saying largely, I just want to be able to feel the way I want to feel. And for me, that's largely peace and quiet and undisturbedness and leave me alone. And so as an example of how that wrecks me, I go into work in the morning and I go in earlier than everybody else so I can sit and have breakfast. I eat my breakfast at work and I want to eat it in peace. So I go off in a room in the corner where nobody's going to be. Of course, I'm the first one there, so nobody's anywhere yet. But I go in there and I close the door. I actually leave the lights off because I like it. I don't want I like it dark in the morning. I like to be alone, like so alone. Like being in the dark makes me feel even more alone. So I'll sit there and I'll eat my breakfast. But when I hear the front door unlock to the building, knowing, cueing me in, someone else has come in, one of my coworkers, I begin to get knots in my stomach because my need to be left alone causes me to interpret just the mere presence of another human being as being an assault on me. And so even though these people who come into the building are going to go off in a different direction of the building, they're not going to bother me, they're not going to talk to me, they're not going to interrupt my peaceful and pleasant breakfast, nonetheless, I still begin to already feel threatened. I already feel like, there are people here that are here for the sole purpose of stripping me of my peace and my pleasant moment. And that is a lie. My mind is telling me these people are going to ruin your peace. And it's just not true. That's not what they're doing. I have now a few months of examples of eating my breakfast in peace without being bothered. I know that that my mind is telling me a lie, and yet still my stomach will end up in knots because I'm thinking about these people who are there for the sole purpose of bothering me, which of course they're not. And it doesn't have to be other people, right? I mean, let's say that your roof has a leak in it, right? You could say, oh my gosh, the roof has a leak. What are we going to do? I don't know how to fix the roof. We don't have the money to fix the roof. There's nobody who will be able to fix the roof for the amount of money that we have. Of course, all of those things could be true, but they also could be a story that your mind is making up. And oftentimes, or almost always actually, that story is to keep you consistent with your ego. Or in other words, to satiate your addiction to certain cognitive functions that you run on autopilot like 100% of the time, and you might not even realize it. One of the best things that we can do for ourselves is to identify what our ego is. That's one of the reasons I love personality theory so much, is because not only does it help me to understand other people, but I can begin to see, hopefully, if I'm being open and I'm being honest with myself, I can begin to see my own problems. Like, my addiction to being left alone causes me to be tense and nervous every time I'm around other human beings because I see them as a threat. Okay, right off the bat, I can recognize that. And then I can say, that's not true. Not every human being, in fact, the vast majority of human beings that I come into interaction with are not there to cause me any trouble, to be difficult, or to ruin my peace and quiet. That's not what they're there to do. In fact, they probably couldn't care much less about my very existence, much less are they there to, wreck my day. So then I can look at the evidence. Okay, for months I've come into work and eaten my breakfast in peace and nobody's bothered me. Why do I think that this is going to be any different today? Why do I see these people as a threat to that? And then I can sort of step outside of my mind and say, okay, my mind is telling me a lie. It's making up a story based on my addiction to my cognitive functions or based on my ego. I need to put that to death, right? I need to kill that. Or at the very least, I need to be cognizant of the fact that it's a lie so that when my mind tells me those lies, I can say, nope, I don't have to believe that. I can let that go. I have heard a number of different people whose teachings have helped me in this area a lot. And one example that one of them used was to look at images or look at, thoughts that pop up in your mind as just passing clouds. You see them, you recognize them, and you can let them go. I like to think of it as I take that thought and I put it on a leaf and I set that leaf down in a creek, and the creek is just flowing in front of me constantly, right? The creek is just the constant flow of life. And when an idea pops up, I don't have to jump on it. I don't have to grab hold of it. I don't have to go, oh my gosh, this thought that my mind is giving me is so real. It's so important. No, I can just take that, set it on a leaf on the creek, and let it go. Obviously, this is all mental imagery that I'm creating to help me. You might come up with something different. It doesn't really matter what method you use or what ideology you use. The idea is just this. Don't allow your addiction to your cognitive functions to cause you to believe lies that your mind is telling you. Step outside of your mind. Step outside of the story that your mind paints about all of your perceptions and all of your human interactions and all of the difficulties that you experience in life. When the roof leaks, when the computer won't work properly, when you can't seem to get your phone to, download the new app correctly, whenever your car won't start, whenever the neighbor is a nuisance when you're outside trying to get yard work done, whenever your coworkers are rude, whenever you're being disrespected. All of these things in one sense may be real, but in another sense, they're not real at all. They're just lies that your mind is telling you. They're interpretations of reality that just simply are not true. Your mind, because of its need to stay consistent with its ego identity that you've worked on creating your whole life, because of that, your mind is constantly telling you a story about everything that's going on. And you don't have to believe it. If you do believe it, it will cause you all kinds of trouble. If you go through life believing, like I often do, that every single person that walks, in the door, every single person that you interact with is somehow there to make your life more difficult and ruin your peace, well, then guess what's going to happen? You're always going to be interpreting every single interaction in that light. You're going to see things that aren't there. You're going to say, for me, I'm going to say, well, everybody's out to make my life more difficult. Everybody's out to ruin my peace and keep me from being able to just have a relaxed, peaceful environment all by myself. Everybody's there to prevent me from being left alone. Well, then every time somebody appears, guess what? My mind is going to say, there it is. See, I knew it. I knew they were there to ruin my peace, and there they are. When all they're doing is like walking down the sidewalk or something. It's a lie that my mind tells me. I believe it. And guess what happens? My emotions chase it. Once I believe it, once I listen to the lie that my mind tells me and I believe it, my emotions then chase after it. The nerves set in, or for, the disrespected person, the anger sets in, or for the person who's worried about their roof leaking, the fear sets in, or for the person who wants everybody to, play nice and fair and talk equally with one another, the offense set in. How dare they talk to me that way? Or the fear that they are somehow less in the tribe. Oh, they talk to me that way. Maybe they're thinking, is that who I am? Am I being demoted in the group? Does the group think less of me than I thought? And the reality is the person wasn't even being hateful. They were just trying to communicate information. It was a feeler talking to a thinker, and the thinker was like, look, here are the facts, here's the data, here's what you need to know, tell me what I need to know, great, thanks, bye. And there's none of that, FE pleasantry going on. Whatever it is that stumps you, whatever it is that causes you to stumble, whatever it is that captures your emotions and drags them along, you've got to find a way, or you would do well anyway, to find a way to realize that story that your mind is telling you is a lie. You don't have to believe it. You don't have to allow your emotions to be dragged into it, and you don't have to let it ruin your day. You can recognize the lies that your mind is telling you, compare them to the evidence of the truth, because you have ample evidence to support the truth. If you'll just have an unbiased review of the past, you don't have to believe the lies, and you don't have to let it ruin your day. This has really been something that I've been thinking about and studying and listening to people talk about now for quite some time, and it is making a world of difference in my life. I'm not anywhere near where I want to be. My biggest problem is still that I see almost every human being on earth as a threat. Not all of them. Obviously, the people that I know really well and trust, I don't see that way. But most people I see as a threat. The moment that somebody's around me, I'm like, oh, they're here. Things are going to, not be good because this person's around me. There's another human being within proximity of me. Oh my gosh, my life is falling apart, or something stupid. I'm recognizing that it's stupid. I'm recognizing that it's a lie that I don't have to believe, and it is helping me. I've got a long way to go, but I'm pretty happy about some of the progress that I've made, and I want to share it with you in case you've never heard this before. And if you haven't ever heard it before, then I want you to know there are a lot of really good thoughts out there on ego death. And if you've heard this before, then I hope that this is just another reminder of the importance of this reality in life. Thank you so much for watching. Do please subscribe if you have not already. And please click the little like button below. And if you find any of my videos useful, would you share them on your social media with your friends? And have an awesome day. Bye now.